Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
My Neighbor Zuckerberg is a Indus Vox media production. If you like this podcast, please also listen to Cyrus Says, an irreverent podcast hosted by funny man Cyrus Brocha, who takes a dig at urban India and interviews interesting guests every week. Episodes out every Monday.
Guys, as entrepreneurs, we really don't have the time to figure our closets, especially our footwear and our socks. Luckily, we have the Moja Club solving the socks problem for us. So the Moja Club makes some really awesome funky socks that you can buy individually, or even better, you can subscribe for a period of 6 months or even a year. And they'll even throw in one extra month free. If you're a listener of My Neighbor Zuckerberg, you can get a full 33% discount by just going to their website and using the code My Neighbor Zuckerberg without any spaces in between. I'm going to just repeat that. A full 33% discount, guys, by using the code My Neighbor Zuckerberg. So what are you guys waiting for? Just go to mojaclub.com and get your subscription immediately, man.
You're listening to My Neighbor Zuckerberg.
So hello everyone, welcome to another episode of My Neighbor Zuckerberg. Today we have some bad news. It's only me hosting the show. Okay, I'm Munaf Kapadia, the Chief Eating Officer at the Bori Kitchen. My dashing co-host Nabil Merchant isn't available today. He's not in the city. Which means I have our guest today all to myself. And I'm really excited about this because today I've had a really bad day. Okay, today, so I run a food business and half my day went in dealing with my kitchen chef and convincing him that his role requires him to fry samosas. And that is not an ego issue. And honestly, every time I face such challenges, and as the guest looks at me and she's smiling at me, what I want to tell her is that I constantly wish I was someplace else. Every once in a while, I feel that, hey, why can't I just get out this weekend? Why can't I do something else? Why can't I get out of my routine? Which is why I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Ritika Saraf.
Hi.
Hey, Ritika, she's the founder of a fantastic venture called Someplace Else. Ritika, tell us, how would you describe Someplace Else?
Well, Someplace Else is a Mumbai-based company that's putting together very interesting experiences every weekend.
Okay.
So we're a weekend experiences company and open to all, including camping, getaways, to treks, nature trails, cycling excursions, food trails, as well as a treasure hunt we call the Curiosity Challenge, and more such experiences.
Okay. And how old is this? When did this start?
We're actually going to finish 3 years this month.
Oh, wow.
It's been 3 years since we're around.
Brilliant.
And building slowly but surely.
Nice. And that, I think, is how you build a real business. How did this start? Like, did you have a day like I'm having right now where you wish that, hey, I wish I could take a break on this weekend. Why isn't there some venture that allows me to do this? How did Someplace Else start?
Yeah, plenty such days because, it's not just one thought. It's a recurring thought that comes up. But the story is this, it goes like this basically. I was working with a startup travel company myself,
Okay.
and I was looking after business development and marketing there. And that company was all about, customizing very offbeat, very out-of-the-box holidays, which had very interesting places to stay at. So at that time, homestays and, heritage hotels with, like staying in a Haveli or going for a really, like trekking in Ladakh. Such activities were not that popularly known of as they are right now. Like now this whole, travel and, go wherever you want. It was a typical, boxed, itinerary-based
like a packaged,
holiday. Yeah. But it was 2013 when people started realizing that they want to sort of have more experiences. They want to sort of really immerse themselves in the place, the destination, the people, the culture, which is why we started planning these trips.
Okay.
Which was really exciting. I loved it. It was almost 2 years that I was
Did you get to go on any?
I did, yeah. I went to Rajasthan. I went to a couple
like a job
of places.
benefit.
Yeah. So, but then, eventually I thought that basically what we're doing is that we're letting the same set of people, which is, say, if you're planning a trip, you'll go with your friends or you'll go with your family. And those are the guys who you will, spend that entire trip with. even though those experiences are amazing, it's still your family or your friends that you are with. How about putting, a bunch of people who don't know each other in an experience, and they're engaging in an activity which is something that they like to do?
Like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, okay. The more extreme example of that, but maybe that...
maybe it's an idea for a trip.
Yeah, maybe. So, so people who sign up will definitely, because they're interested, they'll sign up for something like this. So you meet like-minded people, but, at the same time, not have to bother about company when you're planning something, and engage in an activity together, basically. So when I was about to quit High on Travel, I thought this is something that I want to do, make these the kind of holidays or the kind of experiences that we're putting together for people as private experiences, do it for like a larger audience where anybody can join, and it becomes like a really good group of people doing something together, fun, for fun.
So that's how it started.
Yeah, that's how it started.
So tell us about your first few days. How long did it take you from idea to execution?
Idea to execution took a while. I think I'd say if 4 months is 4 months is basically what it took me.
You quit your job immediately?
I quit my job. Yes, I quit my job eventually, and then I took 4 months to start. It took me a while to come up with the name, which I think I take pride in now.
That's always the hardest. Yeah. It's actually a really, really good name for this.
Yeah, so it's just something that I wanted to keep it something that people think a little bit over, rather than be like, okay, Ritika Adventures, that just would be ridiculous.
That would have been outstanding.
Yeah. But what the good thing is that that as soon as we had this idea, I had this idea that I want to sort of, do this thing where we have really exciting activities. We go to a very, not been to kind of place.
And get like-minded people.
Yeah, get like-minded people. Things just started coming my way. So I met somebody who was just about to start a campsite and didn't know how to market it. And it had a beautiful location, but he had never had guests.
Right.
We were literally the first people to set foot there, and we kind of literally had this collaboration going from the beginning, from scratch.
Perfect,
absolutely.
Perfect. And that motivates you to kind of keep building momentum.
Yes, exactly. We wanted to have a band come and play live at the campsite. Through and through, I kind of met people who are artists, and they were happy to come along, and so on. So things just kind of started flowing. So I guess when you just set your mind to something, the right things come your way, which is good enough motivation as a kickstart.
So that's how Someplace Else started, and that's what motivated you to do it. So how's it going today? Tell us about the team. How many people are there in the team?
We have a team of about 6 odd people who are on ground, which, these are the guys who have either been trained by us or are experts in their domain and are leading, let's say a trek or a cycling excursion or maybe a food trail or whatever the case might be. However, the person right now who's handling marketing and business development is me completely. We're looking to hire, in case anybody is interested, please send us your resume. We want to hire somebody in marketing and BD.
Absolutely.
But we're building our team that will be sort of doing the back end, stuff, while things on ground and on the event side are sorted.
Fantastic. And how many events do you do?
We try to do
in a month
least,
or something.
So within a month we have a minimum of 5 events, and it can go up to 15 events, keeping an average of 3 events every weekend.
Perfect.
Because we want to stick to weekends. We might actually get to doing some experiences on weekdays as well, which people can take up right after work, like a food trail or
nice.
Like a night cycle, like evening cycling thing.
And I'm just
whatever.
very curious, how do you curate events? How do you decide on what to do?
Well, basically, a lot of this is what I would be interested in doing. So it starts with that. When it comes to, let's say, a treasure hunt, which will help you explore heritage and culture and iconic places and hidden corners of the city, it's something I like to do. If I have some time, just get out and venture out and see what's new in the city.
Yeah.
Whereas the other things are definitely, because there's so much seasonality in this business. Once we have monsoons come in, people will just want to go outdoors. They just want to go on treks. They'll want to go and see the green landscape of our.
Because that's what you would want to do.
Yes, which is what I would want to do, and all this at the same time. I know that a lot of people will want to do.
So this is really interesting because we've interviewed roughly, I think, 17 people.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
on My Neighbor Zuckerberg. And we started noticing, unintentionally, trends across all our interviewees who we've been very lucky enough to have out here. And one of the biggest trends is everyone who's founded their business has founded something which has solved a problem they had.
Right.
Be it Satyajit, who solved a problem his mother had of frying onions, or be it anyone else who various problems. So similarly, Ritika, I'm not surprised to hear that you started someplace else because somewhere in your mind you were like, hey, I want to go for this trek, or I want
Yeah.
to go for a midnight cycling expedition.
Right. Correct.
And I think that's kind of what motivates us to keep on doing what we are doing despite the challenges. And
Yeah, there are more layers to that. So, for example, I'm not a trekker myself, but when I want to do a trek, I want to do it in such a way that I'm not blown away by how difficult it is. So when we do treks, we make sure that we choose trails that are easy, that people will enjoy the beauty of, rather than, struggle with actually getting there and really fight out the fact that they're going for a trek. Like, people get scared of the word trek, so it's just better to, help them, see the beauty of it rather than get scared by it.
or the physical strenuous.
How tired they might be, or will they actually be able to do it or not. Similarly with cycling, a lot of people I get calls and they say, hey, 25 kilometers seems a lot. The last time I cycled was in school, which was like 10 years, 15 years back, or whatever the case might be. And I tell them that, this is a tried and tested thing. Everybody has managed to finish 25. It's a very basic, like an amateur number to achieve. So don't worry about it. So we know that these are things that, people with a very basic fitness level and, those who haven't ventured out or who are not very outdoorsy will be able to achieve. And that's why there's more, universal appeal to what we do. And that's how we even market it. Like, our copy will say these things that don't worry, you'll be able to do it. So
that's very reassuring.
Yeah.
So cool. So someplace else is definitely a place I can do a few treks on. So I was going to your website because looking at all the events, it's definitely Bombay centric.
Yeah.
That's what you're focusing on. So is that a conscious decision where you want to be hyper local, or do you see this going to other cities and replicating the same model?
Definitely. It's been we've stretched it too much by staying a Bombay centric company, but as soon as possible we want to do events in Pune and Bangalore to start with, and hopefully Delhi and other cities eventually. And we've got requests also from people who are in Delhi or in Pune that, hey, why don't you do something like this here? But I see that like a larger audience definitely sits in Pune and Bangalore that are young and would want to.
All these
venture
Bombay
out.
people now, they've become old.
Traveling
by train,
they're
the
very
pollution.
comfortable. Mumbai people are very comfortable.
I don't know if they're comfortable or they just don't want to get out of their homes because of all the
because they're
streets
comfortable.
and their potholes.
Yeah, well, and also, people in Bangalore and Pune are not originally from there. So they, like Mumbai people, those who are born and brought up, and a lot of them are born and brought up in Mumbai, they have their own set of friends, they have their own set of comfort zone, they have too much to do on the weekends anyway, and they're very comfortable with that lifestyle.
No, they don't. They go to an expensive restaurant, they spend money on that.
Which they like doing, and we're trying to sort of get them out of that. That's what we're hoping to do, that, soon enough they'll, be outside this typical party or a restaurant or a brunch or a movie, and come out and have fun.
But we're lazy, I think. Bombay people are very lazy.
Yeah, so there is that barrier that we have to break when it comes to Mumbai, but that's not the case with Bombay and Pune and Bangalore. They're already out there. They're more fitness oriented. They're younger. They're either studying in colleges in these cities or they're working, but they don't belong here.
Yeah.
So for them, it's
Even
it's a definite
Hyderabad, for
win.
instance. Yeah.
Yeah, Hyderabad. Yeah, definitely.
Really nice, interesting. And while you were saying this, I'm just constantly wondering, do you have any interesting stories about events that you've curated and something unexpected happened?
Yeah, lots of such things happen because, while we're busy, curating events and just making sure everything on ground is all right, there's some other things happening on the side. Like if there's an event and eventually, what is this about? This is about people who don't know each other coming together again, doing something that they like. And a lot of people come solo. A lot of people come with a lot of apprehensions of coming solo as well. So for example, there was this one girl who wanted to come for a camping getaway, and she said, I have a pet dog. Can I get him along? And he's really like awesome in the sense that he'll be fine, and don't worry about him. He'll not bother the others. They'll love him. And I was just like, I'm not sure,
It's a risk, yeah.
Yeah, it's a risk. But like, to cut a long story short, it was amazing. The dog's name is Panty. Okay. And it was awesome to have her around. Everybody loved her. She was just the best. And, the pet owner is an amazing person. And it was really, really exciting to see that happen. And that like is connected to another story where basically, we made friends with this couple that had the pet dog and everything, and then they came on a trek with us, which was a waterfall trek, and I knew that they are coming. And then I got a call from this other girl who was really like, she was coming alone, and she's like, I really want to do this, but do you think I'll be okay? I'm coming solo. I don't know anybody. Will I be fine and everything? So I said, I know some people who are coming on this trek, and I have other friends also who are going to be there, and I'm sure you'll have a good time. Don't worry about it. Look out for this couple specifically. They're great and everything. And cut to like just a couple of months ago when I bumped into her at a wedding, and I told her, hey, I'm Ritika, I run someplace else. She said, I know you, I've come for a trek, and I met this couple, and we've become great friends, and I'm doing like a video on them, on their story, because they have a great story, and all of that, and I'm going for their wedding and all of that, and I'm really grateful to you for having sort of pushed me into going for this trek alone, and I really want to say thank you. I'm just like, okay, that was not expected at all. So these things happen, like lots of stories like that, like lots. I can go on and on.
But is there a dark side to all of this? Are there any struggles? How difficult has it been setting up this business?
It's been very difficult because there is not just one. So there are a lot of things that one has to, put together to make a larger event happen. It can be something really, like it can be a very small event, but if suppose there's a cycling event, for a group of as small as 30 or 40 people, we have to train like 2 or 3 people, who can conduct a ride properly. We have to have cycles in the best of their shape with helmets. We have to have a safety vehicle which is following the whole group with an extra cycle on board, a mechanic on board, a first aid kit, somebody in the vehicle who can help everybody out in case there's a problem. We have to place an order for food, which is food, water is taken care of, and we have to see how can we engage them in a in just more than a cycling manner. That's just executing the event, and promotion of the event is enough. So a lot of small things that one has to take care of to make an event actually happen, and not even one of them can be can fail. Like if suppose the food is not delivered on time, or if the food is stale, or if one of the volunteers decides that he cannot make it for the event, or the mechanic is not there. Even if one thing goes off, that that means that there's a very high chance that the whole event is not going to go very well. It's not cancelled necessarily, but the execution of the event will not be at par with what my standard of quality is. Or on the promotion side, if we are doing something new and we're very excited about it, we're trying something really exciting and interesting, but we don't see that response. And there are some people who booked, but there aren't some who haven't booked, and we have to cancel because we haven't reached that the number of people that we expect to kind of do an event, like the minimum number. That's really depressing.
I can imagine, because you
put in so
everything.
much effort, and you sort of schedule your calendar in such a way that it's going to work out, and you promote and you push.
So, what are the marketing channels to get these kind of customers?
A lot of it is online. Of course, social media plays a huge role. So
creating events on Facebook.
Yes, creating events on Facebook, being active on all social media handles. And, people subscribe to our newsletter, so we reach out to them every week or so. But hugely, like I'd say, rather than the inorganic ways, the organic ways have worked best for us. Word of mouth is huge. People will talk about our events to 5 other people, and that's how they find out about us. And secondly, PR. You know, so thankfully we've had a lot of online and offline, dailies and just websites covering us, talking about us, and that has helped us to get the right kind of people and sign up for these events, and then again the word spreads via word of mouth.
Fantastic.
So while we keep our marketing, keep going on with our marketing and promotions, it's
mainly
word of mouth and PR that helps most.
Where do you see someplace else going? In the sense that now will you expand into other cities? Is that the immediate goal, or is there more of a, maybe you'll introduce niche events which you have in mind? What's your plan with this in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years?
The next 2 to 3 years, definitely. So the larger goal is definitely, go to other cities. And the more immediate goal is to actually have more different, experiences, not just what we're already doing. There are about 7 to 8 formats of experiences that we're doing. We want to try to, put together longer holidays to a particular destination, which are really filled with activities and interesting experiences again. Maybe even look at a segment specifically like kids, basically kids and parents. So basically tap into segments special segments like kids, and at the same time look at longer holiday which will be not only city specific. Obviously, if you're in Goa also, you can take up a holiday,
right,
which is anywhere in the country, and then start with experiences in other cities for sure.
Brilliant. And what do you think is the potential of the space? What's the potential of this entire category?
The best thing about where we are right now is that basically, the way people what people think of experiences is changing.
Right.
What people think of travel is changing. What they want to do with their weekends. All of this, basically how they want to spend their life and how they want to spend their whatever free time they have is changing. So I feel like it's immense. You can see the number of small events, workshops being conducted in the city.
Growing,
you can see how it's growing,
and
that's
spaces
very.
Are also
All of these movie websites like Book My Show and all, they have a section now for experiences. It's very clear, like ClearTrip and all of these people have started a section called local experiences. So people are definitely there is that that shift in the way people are spending their time, their free time, whether it's holidays or weekends or whatever little few hours that they have. So I feel like the space is definitely growing, but there is a huge chance that it'll become big eventually.
Fantastic. So at this stage, Ritika, we'll take a break. We'll quickly check if there's something you can do for 15 minutes on your website. And we'll be right back.
Every film has a hero, heroine, villain, and songs. But what makes a film truly memorable are those great characters like Pappu Peja, Gabbar Singh, Mogambo, Calendar, and several others like that. Join me every week as I sit down to talk to brilliant actors who have played some of the most memorable characters in Indian film history. This is Bollywood Scene Stealers. Tune into a new episode every Monday on iTunes, SoundCloud, Audioboom, the IVM podcast app, or any other podcast apps you like.
So wow, Ritika, that trek we just attended in a matter of 8.5 minutes was outstanding.
Yeah.
I have to comment on that.
Yeah, 15 minutes, no? Almost like a power nap.
So at this stage of the podcast, Ritika, we'd love to know a little bit more about you. Okay, so we've understood your business. We got a gist of how it started. But I sometimes feel that, hey, the business is fascinating and it inspires a lot of curiosity and questions. But what about the person behind the business? What inspired them to do it? How do they wake up every day and motivate themselves to deal with the world and the events which don't get filled up and you have to cancel? How do you deal with that morale issue? So let's start with a simple question. You told us you started this after leaving a travel company.
Yeah.
But when did the first idea of starting your own venture hit you?
So I've always wanted to do, I've always wanted to start up. And I remember when I was, so I've worked with Business Standard, which is like a financial news daily. And it was a good experience. At the same time, it was not something that I wanted to do always. And I was having this issue where I was just like, I want to quit and I want to, take up another job. Should I start up already or should I, take up another job? And then I came across this travel company that I mentioned earlier about High on Travel. And I said that it's now's the time that I have to decide to, change the course of my career. I have to take this risk of, joining a startup, and I have to sort of learn, just get the feel of how a startup runs and, work with founders rather than, say a business head or whatever, and get that hands-on experience. And then I think it'll be a good time for me to start rather than, already starting up on my own. I didn't even have any great ideas back then, which I think was which I think was a good idea eventually. Now that I think of it, so it's really funny because when I had already quit my job and already I had been hired by High on Travel because all our meetings used to happen at cafes, and I didn't bother thinking why that was the case. But then I realized when I was asked to come for a briefing to the office, it was an apartment in a very dilapidated looking building, and while the founder was briefing me on what all I have to do, there was construction noise coming from here. Somebody was sitting on a beanbag, somebody facing the wall and working, and it was just really, really strange environment. I said, shit. I had this, for a second, I had this, big doubt that did I do the right thing, because I've quit a proper job and, I've come to this, what is this, going on? But then I stuck with it, and that was, things just unfolded from there. I think so it's just initially that you'll have that, that problem where people firstly are wondering what you're doing. And even now I get these questions, what is it that you're doing exactly? I don't understand. I think a lot of people who are doing something fairly different from the regular, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever IT professional or whatever, will get this question for a long time. But you just have to shrug it off and you just have to say that, this is what I'm doing.
So that inspired you to start your own thing. You've always wanted to do this. And what inspired you to get into the travel space? Why did you join a travel startup? Why not something else?
So, this is going to sound very cliched because it comes to me whenever I'm hiring somebody that I love traveling. People go I love, travel is my passion. I really enjoy traveling. That was the case with me. I did enjoy traveling, but I didn't travel the way the company was promoting travel. Mostly, I really liked the idea. It wasn't that I wanted to get into the travel industry. I came across an article that was, had something written about this company. When I went on the website, I liked the fact that they were trying to change something. They're trying to change how people travel. And that, I related to that.
It's against the mainstream.
So I had that quick connect with what they're trying to change, which is what I really liked. And that's basically how I came into the travel industry and then saw what's happening already out here. And, now I'm a part of it.
Brilliant. Fair enough. Makes sense. How did your parents react to this decision? I love asking all our guests this.
No, but there's no masala here because my dad was like, please jump into it right now because, now's the time. If you have to set up a business, you should do it now.
Father of the Year award goes to Mr. Saraf.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And and your mom also was like...
Yeah, both my parents were absolutely okay because they said that if you have to start up, you might as well do it as early as possible rather than thinking of some idea, a few years after.
Ruminating over it.
So it makes no sense.
And then telling your kids to do it.
Yeah.
I think... one very interesting lesson any potential or existing entrepreneurs can learn from your decision. It's sort of very analogous to what people normally ask us, hey man, should I do an MBA before joining my first job? Or can I just directly do my first job after my graduation or whatnot? In this case, should I start my business by first joining a startup? And you did that. You actually had already identified that you want to get into the travel space and you decided to join a travel startup. And I think our listeners would like to know how impactful was that? Did it actually help you? And how did it help you?
Yes, it did. And basically... So that's wrong. It's not that I wanted to get into the travel industry and that's why I joined a travel startup and then I started up. It's just like I mentioned earlier, I liked the idea and I liked what they were trying to change and how they're doing it. Even the way they were executing things, their marketing, their website, everything looked beautiful. But at the same time, I realized how amazing the travel industry is. That was my my door to seeing what's going on. There are some very, very, typical travel agencies that are doing what they've been doing for years together, but there are some really small interesting boutique agencies or people or homestays or hotels or experience owners, I'd like to call them, that are changing the way people finally experience what they're going to experience. So it's talking to them, meeting them, writing about them. I used to write a lot of blogs also, and just having all of that conversation. We as employees of the company would only talk about this. We'd only
it's your life.
It was over lunch also. We were like, okay, did you check out that property and did you see what history it has and so on. And it was just so exciting to keep talking about new places and new experiences and new people, and that was good enough for me to realize that this is where I want to be eventually. I want to stay here. I want to find more such experiences and just either talk about them, write about them, put something together, so that more and more people discover this.
Another common trend across entrepreneurs is entrepreneurship impacts lives, in the sense that you're accustomed to this air-conditioned job and the company laptop and a 9-to-5 routine, and then you suddenly decided that, hey, you're going to start your own thing. How has it impacted your life, or has nothing changed for you?
A lot of things have changed for me. A lot of things. It's become a part of my lifestyle because the work that, the space that I am in is so people-oriented. That the way I work with people, the way I talk to people, manage them in an event, or talk about it to people, all of these things have changed. But at the same time, just like how I live my life, that on weekends I'm busy doing, so this is one part of my life, that on weekends I'm busy and on weekdays there's more time to do other stuff.
Yeah.
But, for me to wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning and, finish an event and actually come back home at 12 and get on with my Sunday is normal. Okay. Which is something that people should realize, that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very different than a regular routine, a Monday to Friday work routine where Saturday, Sunday is typically free to do whatever you want, and you have that 8, 9, 10 day long holiday maybe once or twice a year. These things don't necessarily happen, at least in the initial years of working. You really have to get your hands dirty. I've really I was not so much, a person who can manage a big crowd or, so a lot of personal growth, a lot of personality growth has happened while, being on field and managing things the way they're managed. And also I've made some great friends. People who've come as complete strangers have met us and have liked our experiences, come repeatedly on the same experience multiple times. We give out these badges which have some quote written on it or whatever on our cycling excursions. There are people who have collected 15, 20, 25 such badges because they've come for the same thing again and again, and they enjoy it so much.
So you have so many repeat customers.
Yes, and there are some well-wishers in this pool of people who are who were first strangers and now have come for our events and have become friends, and they are people who I can reach out to for help also, and they just constantly keep our motivation going. So these are some of the softer aspects of the business that I like, and I've built on the way. So.
Outstanding, Ritika. Thank you so much. And I just, to end this podcast, I want to ask you. So we asked you what was the future of someplace else, where you're taking it. But what's in store for you? Where do you see yourself personally go 3 to 5 years from now?
Well, definitely, in 3 to 5 years, I still see myself, just really, really spreading my wings with someplace else, and having a much larger team, having more and more events happening, having more and more, cities looked at. That's basically what I'm looking at doing.
Brilliant. Thank you. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And before we sign off, you can find Someplace Else. What's your website?
It's www.someplaceelse.in.
And you can look for it on Facebook also.
Yes.
In fact, I was checking it out and I think you have a Chiku,
Yeah.
a Chiku camp.
Yes,
It
like
sounds
a kids camping
promising.
on a chiku orchard with
Oh.
Varley painting and
Wow.
a walk in the village and interesting things.
Brilliant. So please check it out. This is Munaf signing off from My Neighbor Zuckerberg.
That was an episode of My Neighbor Zuckerberg, brought to you by Indus Vox Media and media partners Inc. 42.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out
IVM Podcasts
to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.